Welcome back to This Explainer. Today, we're opening up one of history's absolute creepiest mystery boxes. Imagine sailing across a vast ocean to establish a brand new home in an untamed wilderness. You build houses, you start a tight-knit community, and then, just 3 years later, every single man, woman, and child vanishes without a trace. No bodies, no struggle, no signs of life whatsoever. Just a single, haunting word left behind. Today, we're diving deep into the terrifying, true story of the lost colony of Roanoke.
So, how does an entire colony literally just vanish into thin air? It's basically the ultimate 400-year-old cold case, right? The truth of what happened on that island is far darker and way more complex than you might think. So get comfortable, because we're going to look at the evidence, trace the timeline, and try to piece together an answer to a question that has completely baffled historians for centuries.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. A settlement erased.
Picture this. It's 1587, and a group of incredibly hopeful English settlers steps onto the shores of Roanoke Island, right off the coast of modern-day North Carolina. They were so confident they were going to build the foundations of a glorious new empire in this brand new world. 115. That is the exact number of people who walked straight into this unsolved mystery. And what's absolutely crucial to remember here is that these weren't just hardened soldiers. These were husbands, wives, and children. Entire families willingly stepping into a completely untamed wilderness to start a new life.
Section 2. The Ill-Fated Voyage.
To really understand how they ended up there, we got to rewind just a bit. England, ruled by Queen Elizabeth I, was locked in this bitter, high-stakes rivalry with Spain for global dominance. Driven by that rivalry, Sir Walter Raleigh launched a 1587 expedition to build a permanent home in North America. Led by Governor John White, this was a very different kind of mission from previous military attempts. This expedition was all about building a home and celebrating new life. It included pregnant women, most notably Governor White's own daughter, Eleanor Dare. In fact, shortly after arriving, she gave birth to Virginia Dare, who made history as the very first English child born in the Americas. It was this amazing moment of immense hope.
But wow, that hope faded fast. Their arrival was nothing short of ominous. You see, they had planned to meet up with a military garrison left behind from a previous 1585 expedition. Instead, they walked into a complete crime scene. The fort was completely destroyed, the grounds were overgrown with wild weeds, and chillingly, the only human remains they found was a single, bleached skeleton. Just imagine stepping off a ship after months at sea and being greeted by that.
Section 3. Stranded and desperate.
Despite those blaring warning signs, they had absolutely zero choice but to stay. The ships had to leave, and the colonists were stranded. With summer rapidly ending and the clock ticking to plant crops, food stores ran dangerously low. Worse, tensions with the local Roanoke and Croatoan tribes were deeply hostile, thanks to conflicts sparked by those previous English soldiers. This sheer desperation forced Governor John White into an agonizing decision just weeks after arriving. He had to leave his family, including his newborn granddaughter, Virginia Dare, behind on Roanoke. He would sail back to England to secure emergency supplies and reinforcements, fully intending to return in just a few short months. It was a massive gamble.
But destiny completely intervened. Looking at the timeline, it brilliantly illustrates this incredibly frustrating 3-year gap. White arrived in July, left in August, and thought he'd be back in a flash. But right as he reached England, the looming threat of the Spanish Armada erupted into full-scale war. The Royal Navy commandeered every single available ship to fight off the invasion. White was helplessly trapped across the ocean. Months turned into years. It wasn't until August of 1590, 3 agonizingly long years later, that he finally secured passage back.
Section 4. The Haunting Discovery. Just imagine the tension here. It's August 18, 1590. White's ship finally anchors off the coast. He spots a column of smoke and frantically rows ashore,
Only to be met with an absolute void of human presence. The settlement was completely empty, but it wasn't destroyed. The cabins had been carefully dismantled and taken down, which strongly suggests the colonists left willingly rather than under a sudden attack. There were no skeletons, there were no signs of a desperate battle, there was no blood, just an eerie, absolute dead silence.
Then, White noticed a clue. Carved right into the bark of a massive tree near the fort entrance were 3 capital letters, C-R-O.
Now remember White's specific safety protocols. Before he left 3 years prior, he told the colonists, if forced to leave, carve the destination. If under duress, carve a Maltese cross above it. So White is staring at this tree, desperately searching for that cross, and there was no cross. The men rushed over to a nearby palisade post and found the full word, clearly carved into the wood, Croatoan. But again, crucially, there was no distress cross carved above it.
So what does this mean? Well, this pivotal clue gave John White a massive glimmer of hope. Croatoan was an island located about 50 miles south of Roanoke, and was also the name of a local Native American tribe that was generally really friendly to the English. To White, the mystery seemed solved. They were safe. They had just relocated to Croatoan.
He immediately ordered his ships to set sail south. But the tragic arc of John White's life wasn't over. Before they could make the journey, a violent, catastrophic hurricane struck the coast. The storm snapped the ship's cables and destroyed their anchors. The terrified crew forced a devastated Governor White to abandon the search and return to England. He never saw his daughter, his granddaughter, or his friends ever again.
Section 5. 4 Chilling Theories. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can interrogate the leading suspects and theories just like a modern detective.
Because White was forced to leave, we still don't definitively know what happened. But historians have pieced together 4 main theories. First up is the assimilation theory. This suggests that, stranded without supplies, the colonists simply integrated into the friendly Croatoan tribes. The coolest piece of evidence? Later explorers actually reported meeting Native Americans in the region with European facial features and English accents. Next is the Spanish massacre theory. Remember that intense geopolitical rivalry? Historical records show Spanish spies were tracking the English, and they might have sent a secret naval mission to wipe out the settlement entirely. Then there's the disastrous migration attempt, which proposes the colonists tried to build a small boat to sail back to England themselves, ultimately perishing in the merciless Atlantic. And finally, the inland split. Today, modern radar and satellite imagery are actively uncovering 16th century European artifacts miles inland, hinting that the colonies splintered off into smaller groups to survive on the mainland.
Section 6. An enduring American mystery.
More than 4 centuries later, this incredible mystery remains a haunting reminder of the fragility of civilization. Just think about how easily history can swallow a people whole. It leaves us with one final, provocative thought. Did those 115 men, women, and children ultimately find peace and community among the tribes of the American wilderness? Or did they meet a much darker, terrifying fate? It's a puzzle we're literally still trying to solve today. If you love dissecting this mystery with me, make sure to join us for our next explainer as we continue to uncover history's greatest secrets. Until next time, keep questioning the past.